It is now 6:30, and I would like to bring to order the August 25th, 2014 Burnsville Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome staff,
Thank you.
commissioners, welcome, and our audience this evening, welcome, thanks for coming. The first item on this evening's agenda is the adoption of the agenda this evening. Staff, is there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes. Commissioners, do you have any changes to this evening's agenda? I will stand for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Benke. Second by Commissioner Tahiri. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
Great.
The second item on this evening's agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 13th. And staff, do you have
Staff has
any
no changes.
No changes? Okay. Commissioners, any changes from the agenda? No? Then I stand for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Corey. Second by Commissioner Tahiri. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. The third item on this evening's agenda is a conditional use permit. It's a public hearing application for Steve Benson for a conditional use permit. The request for an 8-foot-high privacy fence located at 14237 Park Avenue South. Mr. Slania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, this is a public hearing. It is a request for a conditional use permit. The subject site is 14237 Park Avenue South. Here's an aerial photo of the property. You can see Mr. Benson's home sits right here. It does back up to a pond in the rear property line. Across the street are twin home, medium density homes. The subject site is zoned R1, which is single family residential. That is just one side of Park Avenue. The other side is medium density, as I said, zoned 2 family. The ordinance allows 8-foot fences if they are back a minimum of 10 feet from the property lines. That would be 10 feet from the sides and 10 feet from the rear property. The application in front of you is for a conditional use permit. The ordinance allows 8-foot fences if you are within that 10 feet, whether you're right on the property line or a couple feet off. Again, you're entitled to 6-foot fence, but the 8-foot is what triggers the conditional use permit. That's what's in front of the Planning Commission this evening. The property was platted back in '78. The home was constructed in '79. It's just over 3/4 of an acre in size. Let me jump to a couple other visual aids. The applicant is proposing the fence. It is just shy of 60 feet in length along the south property line. You can see here is the subject home. It would sit just off of the corner of the home running down the hill. We'll get into some of the topography of the site, but there are significant grade changes, not only for the subject site, but all along this side of Park Avenue. And that gets to the reasoning for the height. It does run down the hill towards the pond. As it runs down that hill, it will slowly diminish in visibility for the neighbors. It will have limited visibility from the street. Again, we're looking at a setback back farther than the house, about 58 feet from the property line. But again, due to the grade changes, even at this point, it is lower than the elevation of the street. So although it will be visible, it will be, again, have limited visibility at that area. This is the style. This is the style and manufacturer the applicant is looking at. They're proposing a honey blend color, very residential in style. And here are some elevations I wanted to show the Planning Commission. As you can see, there are retaining walls, fire pit area, seating patio. This is a deck that surrounds a seasonal above-ground pool. All of these are improvements the applicant has made over time, again, trying to utilize a tough backyard with the grade changes. The fence would begin right in this area. You can see the significant drop-off elevations above sea level, 1015 down to 1095 in a very short distance. I believe the report said we're dropping over 50 feet in 175 linear feet. And then, obviously, I didn't get all the way down into the woods near the pond, but it continues at this rate. The fence would end down in this area, beginning not too far off the corner of the house, running along the property line, past the deck, past the pool, and then ending in this area. Again, because of the trees, this is just another angle of the property. You can see the pond in this area. Park Avenue is right here. And I've indicated the seating area, the fire pit, the pool. This is a deck. It is a walkout home, so there's a patio underneath the deck. And again, it gives you a good idea of the grade change that you see there. Through this process, the applicant and staff did talk about a 6-foot privacy fence. Obviously, that would negate the conditional use permit. It would have, I'm sure, been less expensive for the property owner to propose also. Because of these grade changes and really the areas of the yard they're looking to utilize, 6 feet just doesn't reach the height or the buffer, the screening that an 8-foot fence will. I think it's safe to say even with an 8-foot fence there will not be 100% screening or privacy in the backyard because of these grade changes, but the applicant did review that and is proposing 8 feet. As I indicated in the report, the fence is a privacy opaque style. It is a maintenance-free vinyl composite. It is not an uncommon product for residential single-family homes. As I said, the backyard contains a shed, the freestanding deck, pool. The applicant has done a nice job of landscaping and trying to recoup the grades to provide some seating areas and some outdoor living space in the backyard. Reviewing it with both our engineering and building inspections department, the fence would be located within a drainage and utility easement. The applicant's aware of that. If for some reason the city had to get in there, the fence would be removed. It would be the applicant's responsibility and cost to put the fence back in place. They're aware of that. Also, because of the height exceeding the 6 feet, the fence needs to be structurally engineered and designed as such when they submit for permit. The applicant's aware of that and has raised no concerns. The fence, the fence will be very visible from this adjacent property. Again, as I indicated, not from the street as much, but at least in this area, they are at a similar grade. You can see, I believe this is a retaining wall or edge of a landscaping. After that, it falls off steeply, as does on the subject site. But in this area, it will be for 20 to 30 feet very visible, and 8 feet does provide substantial height as compared to a 6-foot fence. Staff did hear from the adjacent property to the north. Spoke with this property owner a couple times. Initially, I had given him incorrect information indicating the fence was along this north property line. He had some concerns. We got that squared away, and I received an email from him today that he does not have a concern with the fence on the south property line. He is out of town and unable to attend the meeting tonight. With that, Commissioners, I will stand for questions. Anything we need to address with aesthetics or grade changes, the property owners here, as well if there are more detailed questions about the site or the backyard that I can't answer. And it is a public hearing.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Tahiri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, you mentioned about the neighbor to the north side of the property. Have you had a chance to get any feedback from the south side neighbor, if he has any objection to the visibility view to the lake? Or?
Not as of yet. I believe they're there. They're here this evening.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Corey.
Thank you, Chair. Chris, just so I think I know the answer to this question, just so I understand, basically it's going to start roughly at the back of the house and go down and then come across and go up, so it encompasses the whole backyard, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. No, we are just dealing with one segment of fence, one straight east-west segment of fence. It's just under 60 feet. It'll start off the corner of the house, end at the hill, and that's it.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know the answer to the question. Good thing I asked. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Staff.
Okay. I have the drainage and utility easement. Odds are it's not going to be. I mean, I realize why we have easements, but we had a lift station recently from a storm retention pond. There's really nothing. The odds of the city needing that easement are
correct. Minimal. It was not a concern the engineering department had, but more of a statement of fact should this occur. Correct.
Okay, that's all I have. Okay, with that said, would the homeowner like to come up and speak to us before we open up the public hearing?
I thought he did a good job.
Well, sometimes we like to quiz him. Okay, all right. Well, this does require a public hearing, so at this point, I would like to open the public hearing and ask anyone in our audience who would like to come up and speak to this matter. We'd appreciate you coming up and talking to us if you have any concerns. Why don't you step up to the podium and please give us your name and address for the record? Thank you.
All right. My name is Cindy Trubb, and I'm 14241, so the side where the fence would be going through. And I'm wondering if he wouldn't mind, Chris, putting up the picture so I could
Yep, absolutely.
have a few things.
The aerial photo, is that what you're...
That would be a good one, yeah.
Okay. Slide over.
I actually have like
Oh, and
one here,
Okay.
but yours is probably easier to
This
get. Yeah.
one or the next?
No, go back to the other one.
Okay.
Okay. So my understanding in talking to, is it Jane is your secretary?
Correct.
Okay.
In our office.
Okay, I couldn't get a hold of Chris. I tried several times. But I did get some information from Jane, and one of the things that she said is that the fence actually starts 58 feet from the front of the property. And in talking with her, she said that basically it would be inside the sidewalk. Is that?
Yes, if, I apologize, I just switched images, but on the survey, the front property line actually starts just behind the sidewalk, rather than being between the sidewalk and the street. So if,
Right, so like the resident side of the
Yep,
sidewalk.
correct.
Okay, so if you go 58 feet from the sidewalk, it actually takes it to the corner of our house, not the corner of their house. And you can see how it's quite a few distance between the two right there. I mean, that's what we got, is right at the corner of our house. So my understanding, it starts at the corner of our house and goes down, and then it goes about 8 feet past the corner of the pool deck. Would that be correct with what you have?
I believe it's, would be down into the woods farther, but we can confirm that with the applicant.
Okay, because that makes a difference. The deck, or the fence itself is 56 feet?
Correct.
Okay. So in measuring it out from the sidewalk, inside the sidewalk to where the fence was going to start, and then going 56 feet, ends up about 8 feet past the corner of the deck is how I see it. And from the corner of the deck, it pretty much goes like this, down. So at the corner of the deck, it would maybe be 8 feet, but then it's going to drop real shortly after that, drop down. And so my question is, or my understanding is the reason for the, what is it called, the conditional permit?
Correct.
Is to have the pool deck not be visible from our house, because if you look from our house, you know, it's at an angle, their backyard, and so the pool is what the issue is. So then my question is, from the pool all the way up through the yards, and if you look, there's not a lot of room in those, why 8 feet there? Because 8 feet is really tall, and that's going to pretty much block off, because if you looked at the fence, there's no air flow through the fence, so it's going to be, you know, pretty much complete 8 feet tall down that whole side. So that was one of my questions as to, you know, by the time it gets to the pool, there's a very small part of the pool that's at 8 feet, and then it drops real quickly. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. And then the aesthetic value of having a huge fence right there, to me, that seems we're now next to a freeway instead of, you know, a nature area. And what does that do to the property value? Another thing, Chris, that you said about from the street view, taking it at the corner of our house again, that being the point that would be 58 feet from the property line. That's at this almost the same grade as the street. So it is visible from the corner of our house standing at the street. And I have a picture of my husband who's 6'4" holding up a yardstick, and you can definitely see most of him. So it is tall from the street too, even though it's just going to be the not the wide part of the fence, but the small part of the fence. But it is still visible from the street. And then some of the improvements that you were saying too, like the shed is on the other side of the property, so pretty much it is just the pool on this side, and the they put in a walkway ramp that goes up on the side of their house that goes up to their deck, so that would be also in that area. Yeah, that's all I have. I guess some of those distances, I kind of question that, and maybe that should be remeasured or something.
Okay, Cindy, I just want to make sure, as I was catching everything, one of your concerns was the 8 foot high of the fence, the entire length, correct? I think we did clarify from a drawing. I don't know if we can certainly show you the drawing that we have in our background. Chris had that up earlier, of 58 feet from which would be the east side, or the, as you said, the residence side of the sidewalk, as our drawing lays it out. Okay. And then the height of the fence after the pool was a concern, and your
No, after the pool, I mean, it's going to drop. I mean, that's not an issue.
not okay.
I do have some other shots where my husband, once again, is standing with the yardstick in various places. And the fence around the pool right now is 6 feet, the fence that they have. And for the 4 months that the pool is up, there's trees right there too that obscure a lot of it. I mean, there's small little pictures or small little views through some trees that you can see of the pool. So, that's another issue too, that it's not that we see a lot of it because of the trees, but when the leaves come down, then there's going to be this huge fence for all the rest of the months of the year when the pool's not being used, so.
Okay. So then, once again, to kind of clarify, I want to make sure that I'm not missing something. The concerned about the 8 foot of the fence, the entire length, and then maybe the height of the fence closer to the street as to why it's 8 feet, I think.
Well, that has to do with the distance thing. He was saying that the fence starts at the downside of the corner of their house, but the measurements given to me by his secretary starts the fence at the downside of our house, which is, that's a distance, and it's also more level rather than heading down the hill. The 8-foot fence down by the pool is not as much of an issue, but the 8-foot fence between the yards going all the way up to the corner of our house, that's something that I don't think is going to be aesthetically very pleasing. It's a nice fence and all, but still, it's a fence that's 8 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah, I have-
Mr. Terry, go ahead.
So basically, your concern is the height, visibility of the fence that would block some visibility. You also mentioned air breathing or wind that could
Just
block
airflow.
some.
Yeah, if it's a solid fence, that's 8 feet, our whole north side of the yard being blocked off.
So you basically object to this fence. in general.
I know a
just-
6-foot
just-
fence is allowable, and, a 6-foot fence would be a 6-foot fence, but I would be unhappy and object to an 8-foot fence.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I have.
Commissioner Benke.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to get my head around this. I mean, you don't object to having a separation between you and your neighbor. It's just the type of separation that you're really struggling with, right?
Right.
Okay,
8 foot is huge, I think.
okay. I. Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, obviously there's probably been some discussions. Was there, would you feel that there could be a happy medium reached with a different height of the fence closer to your home and then the 8 foot farther down? I'm just trying to see what's
Yeah, if it was a
available.
6-foot fence, and then maybe when it gets down to the pool, it's an 8-foot gradual with the slope, I mean, that would make more sense to me. Would 6-foot fence would,
we'll get to, I just was
Right.
just asking.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Trubb?
I don't think so.
Commissioner Core, do you have any questions for?
Nope, I don't.
Okay, all right. Would the applicant come up and please stand and, yeah, if you'll just pull up and state once again, your name and address for the record and,
Hi, I'm Steve Benson. I'm the applicant for the CUP. Good evening. Thanks for being here.
thank you.
I don't know if I can put the mouse over this to try and, can you guys kind of see that?
Yep.
So this is kind of close to where the fence is going to start. It probably would have been helpful to actually have more data points in here, but it's kind of hard to see, but there's quite a bit of slope this way. This point right here, I think it's about 7 feet below the street grade. 6 feet, it's certainly below the street grade here. And then where this 110 is, this is a tree that kind of is on the edge of the hill. You can kind of see where the deck is along here. And then see where these steps start. This is pretty steep right here. So about right where this tree is, it's almost unmowable. It's so steep through here. So what we did was, I mean, for us, we're older, we're trying to enjoy the pool, and we get along well with Cindy and Craig. It's just, we're just looking for a little privacy at the pool and maybe our area under our patio and the fire pit. So we put a 6-foot up to try and get an idea of what type of privacy we would get. And when you're in the pool and you look up, you can still see their window, and as you move around, it's very visible from their upstairs window because there's so much grade. And granted, Cindy said there's some trees that are kind of there, but a bunch of trees have been eliminated since this picture was taken, and I'd like to trim up one of these trees so I can actually see the pool. And if we remove any of that, it's just, I mean, the window's there. We can obviously see it. So when we put the 8-foot, that difference in just that 2 feet because of the grade, that kind of was like, yeah, if we put a fence up and we're shooting for privacy, that 2 feet additional height from this 1010 down the hill was where we actually gained some privacy at the pool and some of the backyard. So we were trying to take into account that, granted it 8 feet, it's a bunch of work to get the CUP, but that extra 2 feet was what helped us gain some privacy at the pool and the fire pit and some other areas that are further down the hill because of the grade. And we've made significant improvements to the property, and we want to enjoy the backyard. And it's, like I said, we get along with Cindy and Craig. We're looking for some additional privacy with the fence. So, again, it might have been helpful to have another data point here closer up to the street so you could get a sense of where this 1015 is as far as the grade.
And the first data point, the 1015, that is, are we correct in saying that's where the fence will start, essentially at the back corner or parallel to the back corner of the neighbor's home?
Yeah, it's real. It's close to the back corner here. Some of the guys that are doing the fence, the grade is so steep at this tree that when they come out and actually, when they were going to do the install, we were talking about where the fence would break because they're thinking that there needs to be the post there. So that's going to kind of drive how close we can get to the house. If it goes too far, we'll just eliminate that piece and put it further down. So this 1015 is close to where we're thinking the fence is going to be down there or to the corner of their house. It's probably 4 feet there from that 1015 to the corner of their house. And then, like Cindy was saying, when you get closer down here to the pool, I guess the only reason we kept going further down the hill is to kind of eliminate Cindy and Craig from having to see underneath the deck because there's some, we can't mow under there, and we've got a lot of plantings in the yard, but we can't do a lot to that part of the yard. So I guess that was more of why we're going so far down the hill, just to kind of, I don't know, I figured they might not want to look under the deck. So.
And the point, the 995, is that pretty close to your assumption as to where the fence will stop?
No, the fence comes to right around this 1,000 number.
Okay, it doesn't go past the pool. It stops.
Yeah, it doesn't go past the pool because, like Cindy said, it's so significant down here. The edge of this pool here, that's probably 12 feet up to the bottom there or something, 10 feet. I'm not sure how tall that is, but the fence would be, the hill's got such a grade to it.
Okay. Commissioners. Commissioner Benke.
Mr. Benson, this picture shows what appears to be a chain link fence or a cable rail or something that you can see through.
Oh, right. I think Cindy commented on a fence or a 6-foot fence or something. There's no fence now in the property. And then what you're asking about is the way we built the deck. This was our solution, so we didn't have to fence the whole yard because we want the pool to be safe when we put it up. So this is like a 6-foot fence or a 6-foot railing that goes around. So I think it's just the angle of the photo from the top where you can kind of see.
Well, Chris, just to check, Burnsville requires a 6-foot fence around the pool? Or is it a 4?
I believe it's only 4.5, but it has to be unclimbable.
Right.
There's some other
Safety.
requirements.
Right.
Correct.
And it was just kind of, oh, sorry.
That's all right.
No, and then the slope of the yard, is that the reason you chose an above-ground pool then, because of the slope of the yard?
Yes, because you couldn't really put it in ground. It would have been so much more money to try and figure out how to do landscaping to get an in-ground pool.
Right, and that pool is, what, 4 feet deep?
Yeah, it's like 42 inches.
Okay.
This is, it's basically like a $500 pool you get from Target. You put it up and take it down. It
Sure.
looks nice now with the deck around it.
Yeah, the work that you've done around it, sure. Had this been up before you did the deck and all that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, we did the retaining wall first, and then we had just the pool to see the kids would get in and out of it, and then the kids liked jumping in the pool so much that we added the deck around the
Sure.
pool.
But when the pool was up before, I mean, did you realize how visible it was to the neighbor?
Yes.
Okay. Had you given any thought to doing a less transparent fence along the deck for privacy?
Oh, up here?
Yes.
We've talked about it, and I guess that would possibly be a solution too. We've been the fence, putting the fence along the property. We've been considering it for a while, and I've had discussions with Craig and Cindy in the past, and we talked about what type of fence, and we talked about whether it might be cedar or not. And
Sure.
cedar's kind of a lot of work, so then we chose this fence that we did get into because I thought aesthetically it looked the closest to the cedar, and
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to worry about it getting kind of not being nice after 5 or 10 years. So
Sure, and that fence comes in panels, sections that are pre-built and basically is assembled on site, but they come in a square or rectangular panel.
yes,
So when they put that in, it's going to step down the hill. It's not going to follow the hill. as you go
actually
down the
they
hill.
can. We've worked quite a bit with Dakota Fence, and they're gonna the ones where it gets real steep. It gets so much rake
Okay.
stock.
Okay.
And then he's going to add as much as he can to try and get it to slope down the hill so it doesn't notch.
Okay.
Because I think, and that's part of the reason we didn't really do the 6 to 8 foot, because we didn't want all these jumps. We just kind of want to try and make it continuously smooth all the way down the hill.
Sure.
So I think the last 3 or the 4 racks that are going to be further down the hill, they're actually taking it apart and cutting all the pieces so it better
Okay.
fits.
So there is some work being done to parallel the slope.
Yes.
Okay. And with as much slope as happens beyond the back of the neighbor's yard, you don't think that there'd be a way to start with a 6-foot panel and as it steps down, turn it into your 8-foot panel?
It's possible. If you can see where
Yep, the 1010, yeah.
the 8 foot to really gain any privacy at the pool, the 8 foot has to be somewhere in here or further back to gain privacy to this part of the yard.
Sure.
So the 6 foot, if we transitioned, it would be 2 or 3 panels here, and then
Sure.
the majority of it's down the hill. But
But it also seemed a little bit like the neighbor that was the area of her most concern. So
right,
that's why I
and
was curious.
if that was a solution that Craig and Cindy would be happier with, I mean, I guess we could look at that option to do 6 foot from here to the corner of the house before this big grade starts. But like I said, this is I can't remember the type of tree it is, but this is where the slope really rakes down. So we'd still like to see 8 foot from here down to this mark.
Sure, and obviously, they are walkouts. You do fall off about 8 feet from the front to the back. Obviously, this continues all the way down. You did look at, I'm sure all of us have sort of looked at the Google Maps for the neighborhood itself. I did notice predominantly that any privacy fences that are in that neighborhood are 6 feet. And most of them then, of course, are visible. And as you go around your block, literally the backyard here it's private. Literally, you can't see it from anywhere else. So, the need for an 8-foot privacy fence in an area that's arguably private already seems a little excessive.
Okay. Yes.
I'm a very private person. My name is Nicole Benson. I live at 14237. I'm the other applicant for this. This is my refuge, my backyard. And I have a lot of gardens I put in there. We've done a tremendous amount of work reclaiming that backyard. And part of it was that he asked me for a cabin, and I said, no, we're not getting a cabin. This is going to be it. I work a tremendous amount of hours, and I want to come home, and I want to be in my backyard and not feel like there's other people watching me. And when you're down at the campfire or I'm down in my garden, I can look up and I can see that area of the yard as far as seeing Cindy and Craig's house and stuff like that. And I would like to feel like it's our space. And without having that 8-foot fence there, when I look up, I'm looking into their backyard. On the other side, because there's so many woods and stuff like that still, on the north side, we don't see our neighbors at all. So I think we're in a unique position when you look at our yard compared to other people's yards as far as they had very flat land. They worked with the 20 feet of flat land they had, and then they let it go. We chose to improve our yard for the purpose of keeping it, private and to have it be our space. And I just don't feel like it is as much as it could be with that higher fence there. So it's not, I feel like we're kind of stuck on the pool. To me, it's not just the pool, because I do a lot of work in the rest of the yard too, which is all way below the elevation of their house and their yard.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Benson. Anything else? No. Commissioner Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From what I understand is basically the elevation 1015 and 1010 are the major concerns as far as the start of the fence and your points, correct? Right close to your the back of your house. If I could, Chris, if you could point elevation 1015 and 1010.
The photo that's up, it's the
Yeah, you see the number 1010 and 1015.
15 and 1010.
So, from what I understand, please, clarify if I'm wrong. If the fence pushed back from those two spots, 1015 to 1010, you have no objection where the fence starts.
You mean if the fence doesn't start until?
On either 1010 or further back from 1015 to their yard, right?
Our yard goes straight, a little bit of a slope. I honestly think 6 feet
Your point is just 6-foot fence.
is a fine height fence. I mean, should we switch places or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would be good for you to
Thank
come to
you.
the.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
Did you have a-
switch the spots, yeah.
Okay. I understand what Nicole is saying, but also if you look at the picture, I mean, we like to have our privacy too, and a lot of those improvements have infringed over on our area also. This is a picture of our upstairs living room window that looks down on the pool.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it'll show up.
Right
This
here?
will be the center, yep.
got a projector or something.
There we go.
Okay, well, it's kind of dark, but, this is from our second-story window, looking down on the pool. And so our yard goes fairly straight, and then it drops off. We have a retaining wall that built it up so that it's nice and flat, or fairly flat. It's not perfectly flat. So,
Cindy, could you just so we're clear, can you show us what, just point on there, the pool, and then I think the deck is on there.
okay, so right here is the corner of the pool deck.
Okay.
And then going up this way on the other side of these trees would be where the fence would be, going up over here.
And then the blue is the pool.
Right. And then this is the railing thing that they have around the pool right here. And then as long as this is on here, if I pop another one in here, because there was some confusion as to how much of the fence you see from the street. And this is actually the street. This would be a 6-foot fence would be right here. And this is starting at the corner of our house. And then this would be the 8-foot fence right here.
And just to clarify, the fence is is not going to turn and go back against the house. It's just
No, the
gonna go
fence would
par-
actually be like right where this
parallel to
line
the
is
house.
here.
Okay, okay.
It's just showing the height.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just noticed that she does have several trees on her property as well, and I guess that last picture, that first picture that you put down, you know, I think,
one right here.
yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see that it's
Yeah,
fairly well
we
screened this time of
planted
year.
these trees, 7 of them, to try to have some privacy between the 2 yards. So we planted those fairly inside our property. There's a tree here. This one right here is a tree on it, a little bit, what, about 2 feet inside your property, 2 or 3 feet, something like that. And then also we have a tree up over here that's pretty much right on the property line.
Anything else, Commissioner? Mackey?
Thank you.
Commissioner Terry?
I
Mr. Corr?
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a question, I think, for Chris. Am I reading this right, that if this was it was set back from the property line 10 feet, then there would be no need for a CUP?
Correct.
So in other words, you could do a 10-foot fence as long as you, or an 8-foot fence as long as you put it in 10 feet.
10 feet, correct.
So it's just the issue of that type
Correct.
in there.
And the same applies then with the 6-foot fence. If you're at 6 feet, you can be at the property line. If you're in that 10 feet, then you can go to the 8-foot height.
So if they actually had the additional property space, basically, so they could just move it in 10 feet, we wouldn't be here, basically.
Correct. We certainly talked, and there are, there's constraints on both sides. I think there is, as you said, there's not a lot of space between the homes in this area, or maybe the other side may.
Especially with the topography.
Correct.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
And then other than the pool and the deck, the other side, the shed, the fire pit, we used to be able to see the fire pit when the pool wasn't there, but now that the pool is there and the deck and everything, we don't see any of that other part of the yard.
Mr. Hubba, I have a question for you. In the name of trying to come to an amicable solution between neighbors, we kind of discussed possible 6-foot fence, part of the way back, which was a concern. And typically, as we try to look at these things, I always try to think about, if this was happening next to me, or we try to look at it that way. Would it be, and I'm not suggesting anything for the homeowner, so I'm just trying to throw out some options. For that portion that's relatively close to your home, like between 1015 and 1010, if the fence was pulled back a little bit and there was some sort of planting put in there to kind of hide that 8-foot, not 8 foot tall, but, some decorative grass or something along that fence to give you a little different view versus a solid 8-foot fence in that very section, is that something that might be a compromise for you?
I don't think that there's trees there that don't show up on this. There's a tree like at 10:05, and there's a tree at about 10:15. One is on our side, one is on their side, so the fence pretty much has to go between those. I don't want to take our tree down. I don't think you want to take your tree down either.
I wasn't suggesting taking anything down. If they pulled if there was able to where your neighbor could plant something on your side of this new fence, something that's got, 3 or 4 feet height to it, 5 feet, some decorative grass, something that would partially hide this 8-foot tall fence on your side, to your point about visibility. I wasn't suggesting taking anything else down. I was just trying to throw out some options for a compromise.
I guess you have to look at the property because there's really not that much room in between to pull it back. 6-foot fence, that would fit the city code guidelines, and if it was a 6-foot fence, there wouldn't be any issues, correct?
So your
Well, my objection would be 8-foot.
Okay. Is your objection if it was a 6-foot fence to the back of their home, and then after that point, there's a transition to an 8-foot fence?
I'd probably be fine with that.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? No. Could we have a response possibly? I was just trying to, we talked about, at some point, you had said about a 6-foot fence somewhere close to the back of your home, which would give the neighbor a 6-foot right there, but then past your home to your privacy question would then transition to an 8-foot fence?
I guess that's a possible solution. If you look at the screen again, at this 1010, this is where there's a big basswood. It's a pretty good slope. Had I known to take pictures, I would have taken pictures. This is significantly down. It's odd, the picture she presented, but anyway, yeah. If we went from a 6-foot fence along this part of the property, and then when we got close to this basswood, if we transitioned, somewhere in this, it gets really steep and go down the hill. If we were to go 8 feet in those areas, I think that's something we might be able to work with.
And I don't think I was suggesting the 1010. I was just at the very back corner of your home, parallel
Oh,
to that.
certainly, yes. If
So your privacy issue and to her fence height issue.
Right. So if we went from the back of our house right here, and this was 8 foot, and then we transitioned to 6 foot beyond our home up this way, I think that's a solution. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's a good suggestion, and yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyone else to speak to this issue?
We should close it.
We should, at this point, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, your comments.
Mr. Chair, if I can just interrupt, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Steve. Do you know what those sections come in? Are they 8-foot sections?
I think they're 8 foot
Because it came out to be 56 feet.
56 feet.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to bring that up. That
They come in 8-foot sections. Yeah.
Correct,
Pretty
typically.
typical.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Corr, you had your hand up.
Sure. I mean, they were talking about a compromise. If the homeowner is happy with the compromise, I guess that, obviously I'm not going to stand in the way of that. What they were talking about with the initial 6-foot fence. I'm on board with the way it's put forth. Frankly, everybody has their opinion. I think it's your property. I think you should be able to do with what you wish. I think if you need an 8-foot fence, your wife desires an 8-foot fence, you should be able to put an 8-foot fence on your property. Because you're kind of scrunched in there with the way that the houses are close together, prevents you from putting that fence 10 foot over. If you put it 10 foot over, you'd have an 8-foot fence and nobody would be here. The fact that it's only or I think it's 5 feet from the property line instead of 10, I just don't see I don't see why we should stand in the way of that. That's just my opinion, but like I said, if the homeowner is happy with the compromise, obviously I'm not going to stand in the way of that either. So, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Corr. Commissioner Terry?
Well, so last thing you want to see neighbors being in dispute and disagreement. I encourage both neighbors to sit down with Chris and come up with a logical, reasonable compromise. I understand, Ms. Child, your concern about fence to be very close to the property at the end, with 10-15, start at 8-foot fence. 8-foot fence usually used for commercial properties, and I understand your concern. It's very high item. So my suggestion is the neighbors sit down with Chris and come up with a compromise solution, and everybody is happy. So at this point, I am reluctant to vote yes for this project unless the compromise is reached. Thank you.
Commissioner Becky?
Thank you, Chair. I really feel caught in the middle because I do appreciate Ms. Chow's comments. On the other side, I'm very conscious of, especially in this day and time, the need for sanctuary and the description that Ms. Benson made for her backyard. With that said, after looking at Ms. Strauss' photos, I too would be hard pressed to simply approve a full 8-foot fence. I think that given what I see in the photo from her upper window and the imagination that the fence people have already apparently discussed with the homeowner, that there should be a way to transition from something that's a little bit less obtrusive than an 8-foot fence, where it is up against the neighbors' yards. Something more human in scale, I think, is more appropriate here. And at this point, if we can come to some kind of a compromise that starts at 6 and becomes 8 as it goes down that huge hill, and still provides at least most of the screening desired, I think that would be a reasonable solution.
And I agree also with Commissioner Corey from a standpoint as a homeowner, they have the right to kind of put up a fence to give themselves some privacy. I do, in the case was here trying to suggest some compromise to move the project forward. Unless I missed something, I was kind of felt like we had somewhat of an agreement with both homeowners that if we transitioned from a 6-foot fence right close to the house to an 8-foot fence past the applicant's home, that I felt both had agreed to that. And at that point, we probably could move forward. Is that a belief? Right. Would that mean that we would need to add that as a condition, that the fence would be 6 feet to the back of the applicant's home and then would transition to an 8-foot fence after that point?
If that's a recommendation the planning commission wants to pass on to the city council, I would put parameters or quantify it in some way, whether it's the back of the house or X number of panels, be 6 feet or 7 feet or 8 feet, and then lay it out like that. And then certainly it's then that discussion can occur at the council as well.
Okay. We could make a point that it would be the southwest corner of the applicant's home as a point in time. I guess feet southeast, I'm sorry, I apologize. The southeast corner of their home would be the transition point. I hesitate to give actual linear footage from the standpoint of having to subdivide panels, but they can work forward and backwards from that point with full panels. Is that something that we could move forward with and be in support of?
I would be definitely in support of that as an amendment.
Commissioner Terry? Commissioner Corey?
Chair, I guess I just want to double check with Mr. Benson. Is that something you're willing to, I guess, go along with, or at this point in time, or not, I guess?
If that's something that we can all be happy with, I'm willing to do what we just didn't do a lot of work around that because at the time we were working with 8 foot and we just didn't know exactly where it was going to fall. But I haven't had a lot of discussions with Cindy about the height piece and the transition. But if that would be a solution that we can move forward with, I'd do that.
Okay. I was just trying to broker a compromise so we could move this forward for you. Okay. With that said, any other comments? I would stand for a motion.
Chair.
Commissioner Corey.
Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission, Planning Commission would recommend to the City Council approval of the conditional use permit with the following conditions: that the privacy fence consist of a maximum of 6 foot of height from the start of the fence closest to Park Avenue until it reaches a point on the southeast corner of Mr. Benson's home, of which point it may transition to a maximum of 8 foot for the remainder of the length of the fence to the end.
And we have a motion on the floor. Staff, do we have any concerns about that motion?
No, I think that's well-defined and quantitative.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Benke. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. And the motion carries. That will go to the City Council on Tuesday, September 2nd. Okay? Thank you very much.
Meeting starts 6:30 back in this room.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. That brings us to the fourth item on our agenda this evening, which is updates. And I'll start with staff. Do you have updates?
Yes, the commissioners, really the single update I have is the meeting on, your next scheduled meeting, September 8th, has been canceled. So the following meeting will be September 22nd.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any updates?
I just had a question of staff, but maybe that's fine for after we adjourn.
I feel kind of bad. Commissioner Singh always has some sort of update, and I feel like I've failed. But with that, the final item on our agenda is adjournment, and I would stand for a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Corey, seconded by Commissioner Tahiri. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you.